Hello everyone and welcome to week 8. I'm going to get started by walking you through the upcoming assignments since there is a number of things due as you wrap up with your first student and prepare to transition into working with your older student. A couple of announcements. I emailed everyone to let you know to be on the lookout for some surveys. The first is the Advanced Program Diversity Survey. You do have the option to opt out of that, but it's highly preferred that you don't and that you start to take the survey. And if you no longer need to take it, it will make that known to you. And then the other is the midpoint survey for those of you that are midway through the program. You will be getting that as well. So please take the time to fill out those surveys for the department. They do really look at the results and take them very seriously. Also, again, a reminder about spring break. Our spring break is week 10, which runs for us from Wednesday, April 3rd to Wednesday, April 10th. So this may differ from your student spring break, and some of them even have 2 weeks of spring break. So make sure you are planning ahead now. The week 9 lectures and materials will be up on March 27th, but then we will have no lecture week 10. The next lecture will be April 10th. My guess is I will have it posted before that time though. All week 9 assignments will be due April 10th, not April 3rd, which is how the syllabus was initially set up. So you guys get an extra week to work on those. But you will need to start your work with your second student the week of April 10th. Because your first assessment artifacts and reflection with that student is due April 17th, there is no video. And your parent permission form is also due April 17th. I have a link in the spring break week of Titanium for that, so you can begin posting it now if you already have it. Just a heads up for the running record homework assignment that you did back a few weeks ago. Everyone who submitted that did a really good job of attempting to be as precise as possible in recording the student's miscues. I selected that student because she does read word by word and a little bit slower, but there's definitely a lot of things happening as she reads that you need to be on top of. So overall, everyone did a really good job. I have feedback up on Titanium for you. And then also, I'm going to put an answer key up in week 8 on Titanium so you can see how I scored it and how I calculated all of those quantitative statistics. Everyone did a really nice job on calculating the stats. And then I was even more so impressed that a lot of folks incorporated the running record and calculating all of the quantitative stats for their artifact reflection or assessment reflection that you did for the word recognition week. A lot of people did end up giving running records and then using that data. So that was exciting to see. Good job. All right, week 8 readings is really just the QRI 5, chapters 1 through 5, which is pages 139. So this week of our content is really focused on the how to give the QRI, whereas next week we're going to talk about how to score and analyze the QRI, which is why I have a little bit of a week buffer in between administering the assessment and then submitting your artifact reflections, etc. So you're reading chapters 1 through 5. You should also watch the QRI 5 video clips in part 1 of the DVD. They're approximately 15 minutes. And then definitely skim the QRI 5 materials in chapter 14. You will need to copy those or print them out from your resource disk in advance so you have them ready. And I will talk later how to determine where to start at. You should really begin where your student scored independent on the word list. So if your student scored independent on pre-primer, then you would start with pre-primer and then either go up or down from there. So you're going to need to copy a number of assessments because you need to find their independent and instructional levels for narrative and expository. So you're going to need to come prepared with probably 3 or 4 different levels of assessment to give. Participation activity, again this week we're going to do a forum discussion, not on VoiceThread, just on Titanium, where I have a file for you to look at in the week 8 folder, and then you will discuss this prompt. What do you notice from the results? What is the student's developmental spelling stage? How do you know? So it's going to be a sample student work for the Words Their Way spelling inventory. And then what is your recommendation for further assessment and that will be due March 27th. And since this is a participation activity, no late submissions are accepted. All right, assignments due this week by March 27th at midnight are just 2 things. First, the participation activity forum discussion I just shared with you. Second will be your 3rd practicum video. So you do need to submit video of you administering the QRI. Just pick one of them. You don't need to do all 4 or more, but pick one of the assessments you administer to video and submit that on TaskStream. So those are the only things due this week. A reminder, participation activities will not be scored past the due date. You have 1 week from the due date for all other assignments, but after a week late, it will not be scored. So again, this week we're focusing on how to give the QRI, which is why just the video of you administering the QRI is due. And then next week we're really talking about analyzing the QRI, and your artifact reflection will be due after that, way after that on the 10th, as well as your case study report. So for your last session, again, you need to give the QRI 5 for narrative as well as expository, assuming that the level your student is reading at has both a narrative and expository text available. Some of those earlier levels, pre-primer, doesn't have expository, they just have a narrative. So you may not be able to give both narrative and expository, but what you need to do is find where the child scores independent on the QRI 5 in both oral reading fluency and comprehension, and where the student scores instructional. So you are trying to determine the student's true independent and true instructional levels for both genres of narrative and expository. So this is going to require you to give about 4 of these assessments, and at minimum 4 of these assessments. And for that reason, there are no other required assessments. You can do, some of these optional ones, but honestly, you are not going to have time, and I think the student is going to be ready to move on. So you're going to do narrative and expository, and then please do some sort of celebration and wrap up with your student, whether it be giving them a recognition certificate or giving them, some sort of game or book or something that will help them in their pursuit. Now that you know so much about them and what their needs are, you could design something for them. There is a video due this week on TaskStream, and that is going to be of, again, any one of your QRI 5s that you are giving. Upcoming assignments, just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. Like I said, your actual assessment artifact and reflection number 5 is not due until April 10th, so you can really take some time after next week's lecture to analyze and take a look at that. However, I wanted to show you that I've already put the link here, so if you do want to submit it early, it's there in week 9. And if you get your parent permission form now for your second student, it's here in week 10. So that would be where you would submit those assignments. So again, assessment, artifact, and reflection, your final one with this student is due April 10th. Your case study report is also due April 10th. You may need to go back to the week 4 lecture to take a look at that. Your field work requirement is due April 17th, so it needs to be in before I can score your first artifact and assessment reflection. Session 1B is going to happen the week of April 10th. At that time, you will need to give an interest inventory, either the MRP or the adolescent MRP, the QRI 5 word list, and a parent interview. So currently, I have the week 5 session guide. So here's that practicum assessment guide I emailed you this evening for your second student, just so you can have that to reference, so you know what we're working on each week. So again, for your first session, which is the week of April 10th, interest inventory, the MRP for grades 1 through 6, the adolescent MRP for grades 6 and up, the QRI word list. Just a reminder, you should start 2 grade levels below the student's current academic grade, and then a parent interview and survey. There will be no video due for that week. And then the second session we'll be doing the QRIs. You will have a video due. Then we focus on comprehension, back to orthography, spelling, writing, and word recognition, and lastly wrapping up with vocabulary and further diagnostics. So that's what your second installment of practicum sessions looks like. This is a good document to have on hand to make sure that you are conducting all of the needed assessments. All right, let's go back to our slideshow here. So I can just give you the heads up again for weeks 8 to 11. So this is week 8. You're reading the QRI, you're watching some video clips, you're doing your last practicum session, the video is due, as well as the discussion forum. Next week, we are reading chapters 7 through 13, which pertain to scoring the QRI and analyzing it. You will also have a couple of articles to read. Your final assessment, artifact, and reflection with this student is due April 10th. Your case study report is due April 10th, and we may or may not have a participation activity. Oh, actually, we definitely have a participation activity, because that's the Google Doc where we're looking at grouping and differentiating based on assessment results. So you will also have that participation activity. Then we get to enjoy some spring break, after which we are getting going with our new students. So you're going to have your first practicum session with them. Make sure you submit your fieldwork requirement, because I need to have that on hand so that I can start looking at your first artifact and reflection assignment, and there will be no video due. So lots of things coming up in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you're looking ahead, planning in advance, so you're getting all of these assignments in, and you know when you have a plan in place for when you're going to meet with your student and get all of this work done. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop it there and meet you back for part 2, where we're going to talk about how to administer the QRI 5.